Hi, hope everybody's doing okay. For me, it's a rainy Sunday, and it's the last day of my vacation. I go back to work tomorrow morning, and I'm looking forward to it because I like my job. But what I also like doing is playing on ham radio on a day off, like today. And because it's rainy and dreary outside, it's a great day to be indoors and enjoying something you like to do. In my case, one of my favorite indoor and sometimes outdoor hobbies is ham radio. I've been a ham since 1984, and I've done all kinds of what I think are very cool things. I've talked to the space shuttles, I've talked to the Mir space station, and many times to the International Space Station, sometimes from my vehicle, sometimes from home, and sometimes while standing out in my backyard holding an antenna and pointing it at the space station, talking to them that way. I find that probably to be my most fun. My biggest kick is what I get from doing that. But I also have communicated with just regular satellites and also using the shortwave bands to communicate essentially around the world. And one of the things that I'm doing right now, and I have been doing over the weekend, is this new mode, fairly new mode, it's only a couple of years old, that we call FT8. And FT8 is essentially the ability of hams on both ends of a conversation to send short bursts of data back and forth to each other to exchange some basic information to make sure that the link is open, that we can talk to each other, and that we can have a successful contact if we need to. So I've been playing with FT8 this weekend, and I've been on FT8 for quite some time now, really enjoying it. Today, I happen to be on what we call the 20-meter band, which is one of the shortwave bands that has worldwide propagation. And currently, as you can see behind me on the screen, there is a scrolling series of call signs and things going up. I'll give you a close-up of that right now as we talk. There's a scrolling call sign list that goes up, and these are all people that are talking to each other right now. And what they're doing is exchanging very brief amounts of information, and presumably, if that information can be exchanged successfully back and forth on radio, then other kinds of information could be exchanged successfully as well, such as using your voice and talking into a microphone and having a normal conversation with somebody, or using Morse code if you happen to know Morse code, and sending and receiving the dots and dashes that essentially would continue to provide the same kind of information you see here with FT8, although it would just be a little slower. FT8 data bursts are only 13.5 seconds long, and each station takes turns, and it's important that both stations have a very closely aligned clock on their computer to make this all happen. So it's highly recommended that people using this particular mode synchronize their clocks with a reliable time server out there somewhere on the internet, or with a GPS signal that's usually very reliable as well. So FT8 can be a lot of fun. Essentially, you don't even need to hear the signal because your computer does the listening for you. It takes the sound from the radio and decodes that sound into bits and bytes and presents you with call signs, signal strength reports, locations of stations, and that's how these things work back and forth. I'm going to turn the volume up a little bit so you can hear in the background. It just sounds like a warbling tone, and after 13.5 seconds the tone ends, and then the other stations reply, and you can hear a whole series of tones. And what you can tell from the display here behind me is that in amongst the blue you see lots of signals, and those signals are all using that frequency spectrum at the same time, but they're at slightly different frequencies, so they don't really interfere with each other, and that way you can have lots of information going back and forth in a very narrow part of the shortwave spectrum. We're on the 20-meter band, which does have, when the conditions are right, worldwide coverage, usually during the daytime. Not every day is great. Sometimes there's a solar flare or not enough sunspots, one or the other, and the 20-meter band is less good. It may even be bad. Yesterday, on Saturday, April the 17th, it was absolutely awful for most of the day because of some geomagnetic disturbance or something. 20 meters was terrible. Today it's in a lot better shape. And if I look around, I see stations here from South America. I see one from Ecuador right now. That's HC1MD. He's in Ecuador. There's Chile is on there, Cuba, all over the United States. I see Hawaii even, it looks like, is on there, at least one of the Pacific Islands. and some other stations that have call signs that are a little odd that I don't even know where they're from. I'd have to look them up online to see exactly where they're from. So it's pretty cool, and it's a lot of fun. It's a great way to pass a few hours in an afternoon, and I have achieved awards using FT8. There are awards for contacting a certain minimum number of stations on certain bands, and if you're able to do that, then you can get awards. The award's only valuable to me. It's not something you'll ever see me receiving on television or anything, because it's not that popular, frankly, amongst ordinary people. But for ham radio operators, it can be quite popular. So I just thought I'd step in, do a video for lack of something else to do, while in the background I'm playing around with FT8. If you're interested in amateur radio in any way, drop a comment down below, and I can probably provide you with a link that will work to help you understand ham radio a little bit better and how to get licensed in your country if you're outside of Canada. I happen to have a license that is Canadian, but I also have an American license, so I'm somewhat familiar with licensing in both Canada and the United States, and to a small degree in the United Kingdom as to how licensing works. But essentially for ham radio, you need to do a bit of studying. You don't need to know Morse code anymore. You used to back in the day. When I first got my license, I had to pass a Morse code test. But you don't have to do that now. It's mostly theory and regulations and procedures. And all the questions are usually found online or in a book that you can buy. And if you pass the exam and want to acquire equipment, you don't have to have really fancy stuff to have a lot of fun. You can just use some walkie-talkies or something to start with if you want to do that instead. But ham radio can be a lot of fun, especially in these times of COVID-19, where it's a hobby that you can enjoy without actually coming into direct physical contact with other people, yet you can still exchange data, conversations, and information with people from around the world. So if you're interested in any way in ham radio, let me know down in the comments, and I'll see if I can provide you with a link to a resource in your local area, perhaps even a local club that would be happy to discuss ham radio with you if you're interested in getting into the hobby. So that's it for now. Hope everyone is doing well in these crazy times, and that we're all back to normal real soon. Bye-bye.